The main purpose of nonviolent communication is to create more connection. There's lots of ways that we communicate that is disconnecting, but the main one is that we often don't share our feelings and we don't share our needs. My model of relationships is what I call wound attraction. You also call it trauma bonding sometimes, but I like wound attraction. Our soul attracts what it wants to heal.
Hello guys, and welcome to another Conscious Conversation. Really excited to have this conversation with you today with a beautiful soul that I think I met maybe a few years ago living on this island. We was at a workshop with each other, learning some bachata and dance moves. Anyway, his name is Bernard, and he is a relationship counselor, and he's somebody that talks a lot about non-violent communication and how we can communicate with ourselves or with our partners better so we can deepen and create these lasting relationships, which I think is such a beautiful thing, Bernard, because I don't know about you, sometimes when you look out into the world or you have a relationship with somebody and you don't really understand what's going on inside yourself, or people maybe are so lost in the world at the moment, like it creates such a separation from people. So the first question that I've got for you is, what is non-violent communication or relationship counseling? Like what is it that you actually do?
Well, what I do is I try to help people connect with each other better.
Nice.
That's really the main thing. The main purpose of nonviolent communication is to create more connection and to understand where the disconnection comes from. There's lots of ways that we communicate that is disconnecting, but the main one is that we often don't share our feelings and we don't share our needs. We tend to talk about what we know, what we think about the other person, how we see things. We talk about our beliefs, our judgments, but we don't actually share our feelings. And when we do, or when we try to, often we don't do it really in a way that's connecting, because we use words that aren't really feeling words. We'll say things like, I feel like you never listened to me. And so I'm sharing my feelings. That's my feelings. I feel like, but that's not a feeling. That's an accusation. I'm basically telling you that you don't listen to me. And you're likely to feel disconnected and potentially a little bit on the defensive. And then you'll push back with, well, wait a minute. You're the one who's not doing this and that. And now we've lost connection.
It's creating a conflict and an argument.
Yes.
How do you then reframe that and say the feeling that you're not listening to me?
So you would say to somebody, hey, I'm feeling a bit curious because I'm wondering if you're really listening to me. And I have a need to be listened to, I have a need to be heard. So
that's about you then, isn't it? It's not about them.
Exactly. I have a need to be heard. I feel a bit confused. I'm not sure what you're doing or not doing, but I'm not receiving it the way I want to receive it. So can we talk about it? Can we have a conversation and explore it? And then hopefully you'll say, yes, we can have a conversation. And I'll say, so tell me more. You know, when I look at you and you look a bit distracted, does that mean you're not listening? Or is it just your way of processing information? Or what's actually going on for you? And so now we have a much different conversation than if I started with, hey, I think I feel like you never listened to me, and you get on the defensive and we end up in this big argument about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're attacking each other and then the ego's fighting back.
Yeah.
That kind of sums up the relationship with my dad.
Yes.
And I love him so much, but I'll mention something and he'll kind of like take it the wrong way, or I'll say it the wrong way, I should say, and then before we know it, we're just like shouting at each other, and it's like, I'm so tired of that. And so I have studied a little bit of this non-violent communication, like this is how I feel, this is what's going on for me. But for some people, they still don't seem to be able to hear it, or maybe I'm still saying it the wrong way. So what tips would you say for somebody like me or somebody listening at home that they're trying the best, bless them, and it might not be their relationship with their dad, it might be their mum, it might be their partner. What would be like some sort of like basic tips on, I know you've just said one then, but basic tips on expressing your emotions in more of a healthier way so you can communicate clearly?
Yeah. So it's really not as simple as it seems, because if it was, we'd all be doing it, right? There's a simple model. When you learn nonviolent communication, you make an observation, you share your feelings about that observation, about that situation, then you share your needs. Every feeling you have points to a need. If you feel sad, it points to a need for disconnection or a need for connection that's not being met.
Oh, I love that. So every surface kind of feeling, there's a deeper need.
There's a need, there's always a need associated with it. The feeling is just the expression of that there's a problem. Sadness, shame, fear, hurt. And then when you figure out which one it is, then you go dig deeper and you figure out what the need is. Once you know what the need is, then you make a request to get that need met. That's a simple model.
Yeah.
If it was that simple, we'd all be doing it. There'd be no problems in the world. It'd be really simple. But it's not working like that. So each one has quite a few nuances. So when you learn this process, it's actually can be a 6-week. When I learned it 13, 14 years ago, it was a 6-week course. Every once a week for a few hours, we'd learn an aspect of it and go deep in it and then move forward. Now I teach it on the island in Kopangan. I do a 2-hour class, which is like an introduction to the whole system. But the big piece of it is like it's not just knowing how to communicate, it's understanding where those feelings and needs come from. That changes everything. It's like it's a whole new paradigm you have to kind of take on. Nobody makes you feel anything.
Something inside you, right?
Yeah, somebody does something, somebody's late and you wait half an hour and you're angry because you've been waiting half an hour. They don't make you feel angry. Some person might be angry, some person might be relieved, some person might be confused. We'll all have different feelings. Nobody makes us feel those feelings. Those feelings just arise in us. Why? Where do they come from? That's the exploration. The more you use this system to begin to understand what those feelings are about, you free yourself. Because I could fix you, and you're never going to be late again, but there'll be somebody else who's going to be late.
Yeah.
There'll be somebody else who cuts me off in traffic and I get angry. I can't fix the world, but I can fix myself. Or at least I can try to heal so that I can change my relationship to this situation so that I'm not at the mercy of the world, always angry, always scared, always hurt by the external. So the more I work on my internal, what I call my internal track, I do my internal track as opposed to the external track.
And track as in like tracking where it come from?
Yeah, tracking where it comes from and where it's going to be dealt with. Right. So, for example, if you're late, the external track is, hey, you're late, I feel upset, I need respect, would you please explore that with me? Or would you please be on time from now on? Or whatever I can make. The resolution is external to me. You're going to do something to help me feel better. You're going to be on time, you're going to explain, there'll be something that you resolve. It's external to me, I call that the external track. But I can look at it and say, when you're late, I usually get angry. Why?
Yeah.
What's going on here? So that's my internal track. I'm going to explore why I get so angry when somebody's late. And probably it's because I have an issue with respect. I have a wound around being important. I don't think I'm important. I don't have good self-worth. So then I see the world, whenever people do things, they're not respecting me. So I keep asking for this respect out in the world. But it's really, they're not doing anything to disrespect me. I'm just interpreting it that way. So the more you use words like I feel disrespected, I feel blamed, I feel attacked, none of those are actual feeling words. Those are actually actions that somebody else is doing.
On the outside?
Yeah, on the outside. You're disrespecting me, you're blaming me, you're attacking me. Those are not my feelings.
And sorry to cut in, but
yeah.
If that person then goes, oh, okay, and then they start changing it, like you say, if you don't get to the bottom of it, it's going to come up somewhere else.
Exactly.
Which is great that you can express it and have this conversation because that person can be aware of that. And
yes.
that would maybe build a better relationship with that person. But if you haven't done that inner work, that thing is still going to be there with someone else, right?
Yeah, so that's why I always say you want to do the internal track and the external track.
Yeah, totally.
If you're late, we want to deal on both sides. Why do I get so angry and why do I have a need for respect? And then why are you late?
And just to let everybody know, I wasn't late for the podcast, all right? We haven't got an issue going on. We were both on time.
I once made I used as an example with someone who came in the room and they were late, but I was just using it as my general example. Yeah. Later, I found out that he got really hurt by that.
Oh,
and they didn't want to come back and all of that, and we ended up having to clean that up later. So it's so subtle. We get hurt so quickly.
But again, that was his stuff about something that was going on for him,
Exactly.
Right?
It had nothing to do with me. Yeah. But they had this fear or this shame, and that shame got triggered by me using it as an example.
Sometimes do you feel, I know I've just cut off a little bit, we'll come back into the inner tracking. Yeah. I've got so many questions already. Sometimes do you feel, though, that these triggers, because we live in this world, this is just my seeing or observation, that we're getting a bit like cotton wool, like, oh, you can't say this and pronounce this and do this, and it's just like, you know what, when I've been triggered and I've had the mindfulness or the awareness to look at that, it set me free. And so sometimes it's okay to feel triggered or emotional and have these things, because it actually, if you look at it and you have that awareness, if you keep on kicking off and fighting and not taking responsibility for it, is what I feel like you're saying, obviously it's just going to keep coming back and coming back. Yeah. But if you just have a bit of awareness around it, these triggers and these conflicts, actually, they actually bring us closer together sometimes. Would you agree?
Yeah, they get us to know each other, right? We learn about ourselves that way. You cannot avoid being triggered.
Yeah.
That's how we survive, right?
Yeah.
If a car comes, it's coming right at you, you're going to jump out of the way to survive.
Yeah.
Well, when somebody says something that hits at the core of your wounding, it's for your system, it's the same as the car coming.
Yeah.
If you don't deal with it, you're going to get murdered or killed or hurt.
Yeah.
So therefore we react. We get angry, we get scared, we shut down, whatever, freeze, flight, fight, or fawn. I don't know if you know about fawn.
Never heard of fawn
So
before.
fawn is the fourth F in trauma, where we go, okay, sure, I'll do it. We don't really want to do something, but we kind of go along, we're fawning. So many of us do that. Like somebody invites you to something and you don't really want to go, but it's your boss, you kind of have to, and you go along. You're not fighting, you're not fleeing, you're not freezing, you're fawning.
Kind of like people pleasing a little bit.
It's people pleasing, yeah, it's like people pleasing or going along.
That used to be my tendency. Maybe still got a bit of that a little bit.
It's hard to get rid of.
And when you really see it, you're like, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
Mate, I love that. So then coming back to the inner tracking.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say, you talked about saying it the wrong way and all of that. I really try to focus on there's no right and wrong.
Okay, nice.
There's just, we do things and they have consequences.
Yeah.
They're not right, they're not wrong. Because if you go into right and wrong, who's right? Who's wrong? Is it Trump? Is it Biden? Is it the Pope? Is it Allah? There's so many different ideas and ways to look at the world. If you believe in right and wrong, you're always going to be in conflict. So to understand that there's just, make a decision, have an action, see the result.
That's my first sneeze on the podcast. I felt like I broke my virginity.
So
there's no right, there's no wrong.
No right and
again,
wrong.
I love that. We live in a world where someone's wrong and someone's right, and you see it on social media, fighting and wars. And I'm like, what are you lot doing? Does it really matter?
It really doesn't matter. The idea is something will be connecting or something will be disconnecting. That's kind of the view here, right? If you say something or if you get triggered or whatever, it may break the connection, but it doesn't make it wrong. It is just something that happened. And so, as I said, we have to, we have to react. There's going to be times when I say something and it just hits you personally. You're going to have a reaction. The goal is how long from that reaction to coming back to the response. You have two choices. You can respond or you can react. Responding means just saying, oh, something happened. Maybe I like it. Maybe I don't like it. Let me do something about it. Reacting is, and then you're kicking out and you swear and you get all excited and you feel the sweat coming down. You have physical reaction. You have an exaggerated reaction. Now you're in reactive mode as opposed to responsive mode. So the idea is, how quickly can I change my reaction back to a response?
So question.
Yeah.
The other day I was out having a meal with a friend, which I love dearly, and I was telling him something I was excited about, and he just kind of cut in quickly. And now, as you're saying this, I see that I reacted by cutting him off a bit quickly as well. I was like, I wasn't going there, I was going here. But now as you're saying this, I'm like, no, actually I was triggered a little bit there. And my question is, I didn't say, oh, this is how I'm feeling and this is where, I didn't kind of go into it. I just kind of really got over it pretty quickly and carried on. And we had such a great night, nothing really mattered. And I actually don't feel like I need to go back and sort of bring that up. But my question is that a good thing, or am I fawning, or whatever that word was? Am I like, by not sort of expressing, hey, actually, when I'm sort of sharing something, you cut me up?
Well, fawning would have been to not say anything. So he would have cut you off, and you would have just sat back and let it be and never said anything.
Yeah, I feel like I said it, but I kind of said it with a bit of
Yeah, so you didn't fawn, but you did react.
Yeah, yes.
So the way I look at it is that it's nothing wrong with reacting, right? You're going to react. But how quickly do you notice it? How quickly do you even forgive yourself? Awareness, acceptance, maybe understand where does that come from? Why do I have these reactions?
Yeah.
Maybe it's an old dad wound, or maybe an old respect wound.
Bloody daddy issues are still there. Thanks, Dad. Make sure you subscribe and like this video.
That's right. This is all. It's thanks to him too that you're here, right?
Oh, 100%.
It's both, right?
Yeah,
So it
100%.
works both ways.
I think for me, sometimes I can be sensitive to how because years ago I would really react and kick off. And now, even if it's just a slight bit of, I thought, I'd never want to be like that to anybody. I can't even kill a mosquito. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got so much love in me that I want to share. And so, like, I kind of walked off. Just as you're saying it, it made me realize, I was like, I wouldn't want to be like that to my friend, but I didn't bring it up.
Well, so what you can do, and what I recommend doing, is that no matter what kind of reaction, at some point, when you've come down, you've regulated, now you come back with a response. And in a way, you get to the response, right? You reacted, but then you just continued, and you let it go, and you let the energy, dissipate, and you continued. You didn't do the repair
Oh, I
To
love
me,
this.
the repair
Oh,
is the
got
crucial
goosebumps.
element.
Yeah.
Right? Anytime I have a reaction, I make sure that at some point I come back and do the repair. I own my reaction.
So you would go back to your friend and say, hey, I noticed I was like this.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I reacted.
Oh, bro, I
You know,
love that.
and I
I've got
can say-
goosebumps on that one.
And I can even explain what it's about, right? I may actually do my internal track for them if that's appropriate. If it's a business thing, maybe not so much. You know, if it's a client, I'm not going to go vulnerable on them. But if it's my partner, for sure, I will be super vulnerable and explore why I had that reaction, what happened. My partner's great at that. You know, she's a woman and she has reactivity tendencies and all of that. And so she'll get mad or something will happen. But at some point, I know she always comes back maybe the next day and says, hey, you know, last night, I'm so sorry I was triggered last night, but now I hear you. You're absolutely right. Here's what's going on, da-da-da. And then we clear it up, and then it's good.
Yeah.
So it builds trust.
And what a conscious relationship to be able to do that, because some people are like fighting with each other 10 years later for something that happened 10 years ago and they've just never got to the bottom of it or expressed it, right? I know that's a bit of an extreme example.
No. But it's, you know, so my model of relationships is what I call wound attraction. Mm-hmm. They also call it trauma bonding sometimes, but I like wound attraction. Or soul attracts what it wants to heal.
Our soul attracts what it wants to heal.
So let's say I have an abandonment wound. You know, personally, I was abandoned a lot as a child. My mom was busy doing things. She put me in foster homes, boarding homes, you know, like orphanages, kind of type things. So I was abandoned a lot. So now that's a wound in me. I'm attracted to people who will help me heal that wound. So I will attract a woman that will trigger my abandonment so that I can heal it.
Oh, hang up. Let me just digest that.
Yeah.
Share that. So you'll attract people that will trigger you to actually heal.
Yeah.
Whereas some people haven't got that awareness. You get triggered and then you kick off and fight and it becomes a mess. But actually, really, you're attracting that person to grow and heal.
That's the original, that's the idea. That's the unconscious idea.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so the mother wound, the father wound, whatever that wound is, the only way you could try to heal it with them. Sometimes some people may be able to. I think us and our generations will be able to do that with our kids a lot more.
Yeah.
But the generation above us, they really couldn't do it. You know, they don't see it, they can't own it, they can't admit it. So you can do all the work yourself. They won't be able to do that healing.
Yeah.
Pardon me, that healing with you. And so relationships is where we do that. Our partners, often we'll talk to our partner like, you're just like my dad, or you're just like my mom, or whatever. We attract somebody who's a lot like our caretaker.
I think I need to ring up all my exes.
Probably. Huh? You will after this conversation.
How much is it a session, mate? This is supposed to be a podcast. It turned to a therapy session for Brett. No, on a serious note, this is beautiful for somebody listening at home that could be in a toxic relationship with anyone, mum, dad, partner, you know. This is beautiful. When you get triggered, this is for you to grow and heal. Bro, that's life-changing.
It is. Once you take that on, you know, when people come to my class and they listen to it and they hear, it's a whole new paradigm.
Yeah.
Right? It's like nobody makes you feel anything. I'm responsible for my feelings, and I can actually understand, you know, the reason why I have these feelings come from this wounding or this conditioning, and there's something I can do about it. And I can stop blaming the world. I can stop blaming my partner. Every time my partner leaves me and my abandonment kicks in, it's not her fault. And so to blame her is kind of pointless.
Yeah.
I have to do the work here. But I do need her to help me heal. So when she does it, I need her to come back and repair. I had a partner who we spent about 6 months together, and she had major anger issues at men. That was really her thing. And so she would get easily angry at something I would say, some joke, some slight or whatever, or she would perceive it as a slight. She would get angry. And when she would get angry, she would leave and disappear for 2 days. And I was like, oh, I don't know if mommy's coming back, right? This was my mother wound. I didn't know if she was there. Because it was like, did I finally break it, right? Did I finally push it too far and now she's not coming back? A couple of days would go by. Eventually she would come back and she would forgive me, which was really nice of her. She would never take any responsibility for her action, for her leaving, for her abandoning me, for her anger. That was justified in her book.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of NVC, she knew the concept, but when it was her stuff, she couldn't do it. And so because she was never repairing it, there was no way to grow together. And so after 6 months, the relationship ended.
So you kind of need, I mean, this is great information for anybody that's kind of realizing they're not so crazy, getting triggered all the time.
Yeah.
But then you also really want to bring this to the people. And if that person's on board with this kind of way of communicating, like this would really heal both of you, right? If the other person doesn't take the responsibility and can't see their actions, like you just said, it's kind of like you're hitting your head against a brick wall. It's going to be difficult, right?
It will be.
You can only do your stuff.
Yeah, and I use it just to grow myself. I kept working on, why did I say the things I did? If I made a passive-aggressive comment, where did that come from? And every time I would own it, I would do the work on it, but she would never, reciprocate. But I learned, I grew from that experience. So it's a crazy model, because when you don't know it's happening, then it can get really toxic. Because you keep hurting me, I keep hurting you, we end up hating each other.
Yeah.
And that's why so many couples, literally, like you said, 10 years down the line, they have kids and all of that, but they've been separated and they still hate each other.
Yeah.
They've never resolved it.
Sad,
Because,
huh?
it's so sad.
Yeah.
The antidote is take responsibility, do it consciously, have a conscious relationship from the very beginning, start exploring your wounding, understand what triggers you, understanding what triggers them, and then support each other for that healing.
You say at the very beginning, so like you on your first date, you're like, hey, what wounds have you got? Or
I can tell right away now when I see a woman I'm attracted to, I can see the wound attraction.
Yeah.
I can see something either energetically or it's just something they're doing, or I hear about them or whatever, and I can say, oh yeah, you're going to trigger this part of me.
Awareness is such a monkey, isn't it? Because when you have this, I get the awareness as well, and I'm like, I know exactly what I want to get from you and what this man is kind of wanting and looking and how he's perceiving you, but like this is just not healthy. I can see it a mile away.
Yeah.
And you either act on it and you you get exactly what you knew you was going to get, or you don't act on it and you kind of, it's such a monkey in a good way. Once you've got that awareness, you can't not sort of switch back off. It's like being unplugged from the matrix and switching back in.
Yeah.
Guys, I know you're enjoying the video, but I've got a quick question for you. Are you okay with that monkey mind being a monkey? We've all got this voice inside the head, or voices filled with self-doubt, criticism, judgment. But most people don't understand how important it is to master that monkey mind. So look, if you've got a monkey mind or a voice that is just busy inside your head and it never seems to shut up, I know exactly how you feel. And thankfully, I found meditation about 20 years ago. And so, I have an amazing opportunity for you. It's the Bodhi Meditation Teacher Training Program. This 10-week program is designed to share with you 8 Bodhi meditations. And the amazing thing about these meditations is that they are scientifically proven to help you reduce stress, reduce anxiety, uplift your mood, boost your energy. In other words, create that kind of lifestyle, that energy and that health and that happiness that most people crave. Over the course of 10 weeks, I'm going to be your meditation coach. And at the end of this course, you're going to become a certified Bodhi meditation teacher. That means that you can coach people one-to-one, you can work from anywhere in the world, build online courses, or even teach meditation at yoga retreats or anywhere you decide. So click that link below and together will open up your heart so that you wake up feeling positive and literally this buzz for life. The link is below. Now you can get back to your video. Have an amazing day.
But so I will share that early on. Say, I really feel this wound attraction for you. And they go, what are you talking about? And I would explain what wound attraction is, what it's about. Maybe they understand this because they're in the coaching world or in the counseling world. If they don't, that's going to be interesting to see whether they can get it and get on board.
And you do that in the first sort of date or a couple of dates, get to know someone a little bit?
Yeah, pretty quickly, yeah.
I suppose it saves so much time as well.
It kind of does.
You really get to be open and vulnerable with each other straight away.
Yeah, one thing I really understood was that when I'm meeting someone, I'm not there to get them to like me, which is what I used to do.
Yeah.
I would put myself in a pretzel, whatever I imagined they wanted to see.
Like me.
Yeah, please them. Yeah. Now I realize I'm actually supposed to interview them and see if I actually like them. They look hot, and yes, they're attractive, and yes, I feel that pull, but who actually are they? And are we going to be a good match? Yeah. That's going to be much more important down the road than the first few weeks of amazing attraction and lovely sex and all of that.
Which lasts for a few months, and then it's kind of like, then you repeat that pattern again. Yeah, that's kind of my story. Yeah. I seem to I used to really fall in love with the outer beauty. Me and Antonio were talking about it, and I even, when men become, infatuated, and you're like so in love, and then all of a sudden you're just triggered, and you're like, a few months later, it's like, what is actually going on here? It's like deep wounded, which brings me on to this next point. Yeah. You said something about, so this is all like outside, but this inner tracking, because you also said downstairs in the kitchen about this inner freedom.
Yes.
So is that what the inner tracking is going to do?
Yes. So we use NVC to understand what the wounding is. So paying attention to my language, right? What are the things that, do I feel disrespected a lot? Oh, I have a wound around respect. So this is going to be my work, my self-worth. If I have a wound around, if I talk about being blamed a lot or being attacked a lot, that probably have something around safety. So I don't feel safe, so I have a wound around safety. So that's going to be my work. And actually, the problem with NVC is that people use NVC to get their needs met. Right? I know how to describe something. I share my feelings. I share my need, and then I make a request, and I expect you to then meet my request. But if I'm not conscious of where that need comes from, basically, my view is that, and everything I talk about are models, right? Even this wound attraction thing. I'm not saying it's real. I'm not saying it's scientifically proven, but it's a model. And check it out. Look at your relationships. Yeah. See, who you've been attracted to and how you've been connecting with them, and see if that's what was going on. This wounding.
I suppose as well, if it works for you and you see it works, then it works.
Then it works, exactly.
I'm like that. If it works, don't care about the science or who said it.
Yes.
Does it actually work for me? And if it doesn't resonate, then it's just not for me, but it might work for someone else.
Exactly. And so I'll make sure that I, preface that, because I don't mean to say that.
No, I appreciate that. It's good, because it's not going to work for everybody, but hey, here's a tip, try it.
Try it.
I mean, we were like 10 minutes into it, and I'm like, it's working for me, already, I'm done.
I haven't met too many people that fight it, but still I like to, to be clear about that.
The inner tracking,
Yeah, so once you realize that your needs are actually wounded needs, any need that you have the need to mention is a wound.
Yeah.
It's not just a need. Because if it's just a need, you don't talk about it. You just do it. You need food, you go to the fridge and you get it. You don't need to say, hey, I'm sorry, I have a need for food. Would somebody please help me? No, you just take care of it. But safety, you start talking about safety, that you have a need for safety. You have a bigger need for safety than other people who don't mention it.
Yeah.
We all need safety, but most of us don't talk about it.
So if
because
you're talking about it, it's a bit more highlighted.
It's more highlighted. And so then when you're using NVC to get those needs met without owning that it's a wound, it becomes a problem, because now you're manipulating people.
Yeah.
Or people may experience you as being manipulative because you're not really saying where it's coming from.
And what shit, that person might actually miss out because they're not going deeper in it, right? They're not going to be free from it in the long run.
Exactly. So once you realize all of that and you understand that these needs are actually wounded needs or unhealthy expression of the need, then you get to do that work. And this is going to be your lifelong work. All of us have this lifelong work of working on these wounds. So, my abandonment has been a lifelong work of doing workshops and therapy and relationships, and little by little, learning to become more and more and more secure. The way I end all my workshop is by this saying that a teacher once told me, you will never heal your wound, but your wound is your gift.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, whoa, okay, hold on. What do you mean I will never heal my wound? I want to heal this wound. I'm sick and tired of this wound, But then I realized, maybe you'll work on the healing. It'll be a healing journey. There may not be any there. There's no point when you're like, okay, I finally did it. I've healed the wound. I don't think that moment ever happens. But you change your relationship to the wound. I was just about to ask,
it takes the edge off of it. So maybe you'll get triggered a little bit now in your relationship, but it wasn't like 10 years ago when you wasn't aware of it.
Exactly.
And then you was like attacking someone verbally or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, this woman who would disappear for 2 days, I'd be like, okay, this is not fun, but I know how to handle this. 10 years prior, I'd be knocking on her door, going, where are you going? What are you doing? What's happening? And making it worse, and then triggering her wound. Yeah. So I've learned to just hold myself in this wound when I feel it. I have this little hole in me that just goes, oh, and it's like, oh shit, where's mommy? Is she not coming back? Oh. And then I breathe and I regulate a bit, and then it's like, okay, that's all right. I know this, old friend. I've been with you before. I can let this go. I can let her go. I trust that she will come back. Also because I have a context now, so that's helped. We've created a secure relationship. So it's a lifelong progress of understanding what the wounds are, and then slowly working with them. And then your wound is your gift. The more you understand it. I mean, I can see that, I just learned about your story just recently when you asked me to do this, and I looked up and I saw your book and I saw your journey a little bit, and I'm like, oh, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, so, we don't really know each other until we start, obviously having a good old conversation. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and so your wound is your gift. Well, out of all this stuff that you went through, now you're doing this, and now you're giving back, and you're using everything you learned on your own healing journey to help others.
No, I'm just doing it to get likes on YouTube.
Oh, there's that.
You can see, obviously, maybe that's a wound, my joking. I wonder if it's a wound. Now I'm with you. I'm conscious of everything I'm doing. I'm like, oh shit, maybe there's a wound there. I've always got to be the joker.
Taking the edge off.
Yeah, taking the edge off of it. Yeah,
and I'm sure that was really useful when you were
back in the day,
in the hood. Yeah.
But I'll take the compliments. Keep going.
Yeah.
So, just to really butt in, you keep going on about the inner stuff, which is what I absolutely love. Is it always related to mummy and daddy, or could it be something?
It's a lot related to mommy and daddy. It's related to our original care or early childhood carers, whether it's mommy and daddy, uncle, grandpa, whatever. It's related to trauma, where we abused, where we neglected, where we, I have a big wound around the need to matter.
The need to matter.
To matter.
Yeah.
So I have abandonment and the need to matter. These two are my big core wounds.
Yeah.
They can fit a little bit, because if you're abandoned, it's because you don't matter.
Yeah.
But also in school, this is me backtracking this, whether it's correct or not, who knows? But this is my understanding of my wounding. When I was young in school, I was a year ahead. I was born at the wrong time of the year, so they put me ahead. And I was also a year slow growing up. So I looked younger than kids my age, and I was a year ahead of everybody else. So the whole time I was this little shrimp that didn't matter. And then when we started dating, 12, 13, 14 years old, the girls liked me, but they would never date me. They were all dating older guys. And so I developed this wound that I don't matter, that I have to prove myself. I'm constantly trying to prove myself. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, all of that. I became really good in school, which was my way of compensating. So that wasn't my parents. That was just the environment. So the wounding can come from, anywhere in your formative years. It can also come later in life if you have a big trauma. You get attacked, you get raped, you get assaulted, something, or you have a big accident, and then some trauma gets developed from that, and then in the future, then you're now reacting to that trauma.
And sometimes could you say as well, like, something just happens in life and your own monkey mind, your own brain will create this story out of it. Yes. Oh, she didn't hug me at the right time. Yes. She doesn't love me. Yeah. But then it happens again next week and the brain will just think, and then it starts to imprint that into your brain that the women don't hug me, it means they don't love me or something like that. Yes. So sometimes it's the perception that creates the experience as well, right?
Well, at the beginning, it's there may be some real event. Yeah. And then in the future, it's always a perception.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that event repeats, but often we're perceiving the world as if it was that event.
Yes.
Where if somebody is looking away, and now it's mommy ignoring me.
Yeah.
But maybe they're not. They're just looking away.
Just at that time they're looking at the sky or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if it's a wound, it's like, wait, why aren't you paying attention to me? And we get all reactive. And then people don't understand, and then we get into these conflicts.
Yeah.
So once we understand all of that, then we know how to deal with it. I mean, I'm not free of reactivity. I react all the time.
Yeah.
But very quickly I can catch it and go, oh, okay, I see what's going on, and then I can adjust and repair.
Yeah, I love that repairing. Yeah, I really love that.
It's huge.
That's a game changer for me already.
Yeah.
You can just come back and say, oh, this is how I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's never too late. Could be 10 years later. Could be, 10 minutes later. It doesn't matter when. At some point, there's no reason not to go back once you figured it out and say, hey, I just realized that 5 years ago we had this thing and I didn't know, but now I know I was totally wrong.
Yeah, looks like I was totally lost. My dad up after this podcast.
Yeah.
Dad, I love you, mate.
And the other piece of that is that it's not just about apologizing. Some of us may not want to apologize for something because we don't think we did anything wrong, but we can apologize for the impact. When I said this, it wasn't wrong me saying this, but I can see that it had an impact on you. It triggered your wound, which has nothing to do with me. That's your shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can acknowledge that and say, hey, I'm sorry that I triggered that wound of yours. I'm sorry that I had an impact, that my words or my action had an impact. That's just as important as, because you're taking responsibility.
This whole podcast is about raising consciousness, having conscious conversations. And what you're saying here is absolutely beautiful to anybody that's listening in their relationships, in their friendships, just in life in general. Yeah. How do you get to that point? Let's go back 20 years ago when I've got a little bit of awareness around my triggers now, and clearly you've got a lot of awareness around your triggers. But take us back 20 years ago, like I would be so in the wound, I'd be so triggered and saying things. If there's somebody watching this and they're so in that toxic relationship or they're so in that trigger and like they're nowhere near having a bit of an awareness, what would you say to them to maybe begin this journey? Like meditate for 5 minutes or take a moment to pause? Because it's easier said than done when you're in it.
Oh, for sure.
That's
so
that
hard.
Fight and flight. It's horrible because it's like, I don't know about you, but it's like milliseconds and you're just triggered. So how could we help people that are kind of like right back there at the beginning?
So when I work with couples, the first thing is, first of all, are you willing, right? Are you willing to look at this new paradigm? Are you willing to look at, I understand that your wounding is your wounding, their partner's wounding is their wounding, and we're here to support each other in that healing.
Nice.
So we're going to be partners in healing as opposed to enemies in wounding, which is usually what happens. So first willing, and then able. the thing is that even if you're willing, you may still be so raw in your wounding and in your triggers that every time your partner does that one little thing, you can't just say, hey, I'm noticing you doing that thing. You just react. And when you react, maybe you have this little bit of a freeze. When you freeze, it triggers their anger, and then they get angry. And so I had a couple like that on the island that I worked with, and they knew exactly what the wounding was. They saw it clearly. They couldn't get out of it. Every time one did something, the other one reacted, the other one reacted. Neither of them had the capacity to hold that in, and do their regulation and hold space for the other until they get regulated. And so then what I recommend is conscious uncoupling. You realize that you love each other in many ways, but your wounding is too raw, you cannot work it out. And so much better to uncouple before it gets toxic, before you hate each other.
Yeah,
while you still like each other and while you still have some love, but you understand that you can't do it. So I'm saying this to say that for some people, it won't be possible when it's too early on and it's too raw. They will need several relationships to little by little smooth the edges off, and eventually they'll be able to have a conscious relationship. That's kind of I don't know, I'm not saying that's the way it is, but that's what I see often happening.
Yeah.
That's the direction. It may take a while to get there. But that being said, yes, the first step is just awareness, right? Just start realizing that when you get triggered, pay attention after the fact. The next day, what was that about? What was I so on about? What did I need? And try to get clear as to what the need is. Did I need safety? Did I need support? Did I need attention, validation? Whatever it is, figure out what that is, because that's your wound. And that's what you're going to want from your partner. And you want to teach your partner to give you that, even if it's not easy for them. For me, giving safety is not the easiest thing, maybe, because I don't need safety. I feel safe pretty much in general, so that's not something I'm fully aware of. So I'll do things that will seem unsafe to my partner.
But for her, it's a big thing. So
it's a big thing.
Safety.
Yeah, and so then I have to learn over and over to stretch.
Which is beautiful then, because if she's able to express that to you, then you become more conscious of that. You can do little things. Maybe it's not you've got an abundance of safety, but if you know, hey, this is the person I want to spend my life with, I love her dearly. She said, I can kind of I can make these little changes for her, which is so beautiful, right?
Yeah, so when I'm on my scooter, I can try to go slower.
Nice example,
right? Because I just like to cruise, right? I mean, I on my bike. Yeah, but with her, it's like I got to go slow. But even sometimes when I know I'm supposed to go slow, I'll get distracted and my hands will start driving, and all of a sudden I'm passing cars and I'm accelerating, and she's like, hey,
panicking,
and then I go, and I realize, and I've realized, and we've realized, I won't get it right all the time.
Love that. Yeah,
it's impossible.
Yeah,
I cannot meet her level of safety need at her level all the time. It's just not in me. I will try, but I will often fail because my mind gets distracted.
Human, right?
We're human, exactly. But because we know that, then we know how to work with it. If she keeps beating me over the head with it and doing what a lot of women do is emasculate their man. You basically just keep telling him everything that's wrong with him. And what you're doing there is you're beating him down, and then he's not going to be there for you. He won't be able to.
Yeah. That takes the power away from being a man in a way, right? And I don't mean power as an ego. I just mean like being grounded and congruent and integral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a teacher who teaches that she says that she used to be a frog farmer.
A frog farmer.
She would turn princes into frogs.
Yeah.
Right? She would just beat them up so hard because everything that was wrong with them that she would turn them into frogs.
Yeah.
And then she realized that was the wrong approach. And so she's now teaching women to not do that, to actually empower their man and to understand that their man is not the same as a woman. A man is not a hairy woman.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different animal. You cannot expect your man to remember the things that women would normally remember. And so to treat each other, we're very different, and not just men and women. We're all different. Yeah. Every single one of us is a unique individual with its unique wounding, its unique needs, its unique conditioning.
So complex.
So you want to try to meet people where they're at. That was a big one for me, is to learn how to meet people where they're at, not where I think they should be.
Yes.
Trying to bring them up to my level, treat them the way I want to be treated.
Yeah.
But that didn't work.
Yeah.
I lost friends over that.
Yeah, I think I've definitely been through that myself. Like, why are they not more thoughtful? Because I'm a very thoughtful person.
Yes.
Or I'm always like including everyone. I'm like, oh, they didn't invite me.
Yeah.
And then a good friend said to me, it's like, well, not everybody's got that what you've got.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And like, but they have something completely different in abundance.
They do.
And it's like really, and it really kind of shook my model of reality up, because I thought everybody should be, very thoughtful and generous and giving. I was like, no, they're not.
They're not.
Yeah,
we're all different.
So different.
And it's not because we're better or whatever. No. It's based on our wounding.
Yeah,
the reason you're the way you are, what I realized is I created a world which I call the Everybody Loves Bernard show.
Yes.
There was a show called Everybody Loves Raymond on TV. And I love that show. And so I realized one day, oh my God, my life is the Everybody Loves Bernard show.
Yeah.
I made sure that everybody loves Bernard because that was my safety. If I want to be safe in the world, I needed allies and I needed friends because I was smaller than everyone. I had my challenges growing up. And so that was the way to make sure that I was going to be safe.
Yeah.
But to this day, that's my default.
Yeah.
To a point where if there's somebody I don't like, they still have to like me. Because if they don't like me, then it's not safe, which is ridiculous.
Crazy what we do with this monkey mind.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous, but it's also as a protective mechanism as well.
I mean, it makes sense.
If your mum's not there and then you've got these abandonments, it's like your brain's trying to protect you. Don't be with someone that's going to abandon you. It's like, don't want to get hurt sort of thing. Or I love this, man. And I really appreciate your transparency and vulnerability. I'm clearly you've done a lot of work on yourself, so you're very happy sharing this. But I think this is really good for other people to listen to and have these kind of conversations. Because I don't know about you, and this is just my thing, but there's a lot of guys out there that are just over trying to be too masculine and telling other guys how to be and how to treat women. I'm just like, that has just gone so far the other way now. Like, and what I love and what I'm just receiving from you is just that we can talk about these emotions. We can still be, and we're just very grounded. It's just, to me, it's common sense, but it's not common practice. It's awareness. If you've not got awareness around something, it's going to control you. As soon as you have a sprinkle of awareness, you're like, oh, I can start making some changes. It doesn't take, it takes time, I should say. It doesn't happen overnight. But for me, it's awareness. And I feel like you've just got a lot of awareness around this madness inside your own mind, which then really, all of us have got it. So when you see other people and their patterns, you're like, oh, I can, we're obviously different, telling a different story, but you've got the awareness, and I think we're all doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's part of the freedom, right? The more I can have this awareness, the more I free myself from all that, that reactivity and all of that. And it's an ongoing work. There's plenty of days where I'm sitting at home feeling all mopey and what's wrong with me and what's going on with my life. And then, at some point I wake up and I go, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, get out.
Yeah,
get out.
I'm actually okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we're always, fully conscious and aware and all of that. It comes and it goes. But being able to go back to it. And so for couples, for people that are at the beginning, like you were saying earlier, having a little bit of awareness, taking a pause. If you're in a conflict with someone, you will, I don't like saying never, you will rarely resolve the conflict. The conflict doesn't get resolved in the argument. The conflict gets resolved later. The conflict gets resolved once you understand what needs you have. Because it's not about the laundry. It's not about the dishes. It's about respect. It's about cooperation, collaboration. It's about some need that you have. And so if you can just mention that need. Now, even if you're aware of the need, you may have misaligned needs. Your need for freedom, my need for safety, whoop.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to figure out a way to compromise on that. But at least we understand that we're not being assholes. You just have a need for freedom. When I'm driving fast, I'm not trying to be a dick to my girlfriend. It's just my automatic freedom thing that just kicks in, and I just want to accelerate. And then I remember, oh, sorry, and then I stop.
Yeah.
So understanding, though, where the conflicts are coming from by understanding our needs is going to be huge. That's kind of the first step, beginning to be aware of what you're needing. But also taking a pause, right? If you're in a conversation, one of you says, "Hey, I'm sorry, we need to take a pause. Let's take a little walk separately, clear our minds." And I recommend really doing something else while you're in the pause. Don't just pause, go sit on a chair and stew on the problem. Like completely go do the dishes, go do some work, change your complete mind.
Go to the gym, do something. Yeah.
And then come back, and now your mind is clear, and now you re-engage with a clear mind. And now you're able to hopefully have a good conversation about it instead of continuing the argument.
Yeah. And what about if you are aware of that, you see that, but you're a bit afraid to go back to that person? That's obviously going to be another deeper need. But I see some people that they don't speak up sometimes. And when I say speak up, doesn't mean that you have to kick off and shout and scream. It's like, actually, no, really express that because vulnerability, I guess, is what we're talking about.
Yes.
You're going back to somebody to say, hey, this is how I felt, or this is, again, how you framed it is beautiful. But what about if that person is a little bit afraid to kind of go back because it might kick off again, or...
Yeah, you have to know who you're dealing with. Some people do not respect vulnerability. Some people will step on your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Especially out in the world. Maybe with your partner it's different, but out in the world, yeah. You go to a bar and somebody gets an argument with you and you try to go all NVC on them and be vulnerable about your feelings and your needs, and they go, fuck off, and then they beat you up.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't care. So it's not going to work all the time. You have to know when to be vulnerable and when not to be vulnerable. But hopefully in a partnership, you create a context.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about all this stuff when you're not triggered. So that's part of the conscious relationship, is you explore what's going to happen in the trigger moments while you're not triggered, so you know how to deal with it.
How to handle it.
Yeah, you make agreements like, okay, we're going to put up a red flag and say pause, and that means that we pause. It may be hard because now you're all triggered and I'm going to fuck you and your red flag, but still you had some kind of agreement to do it, so it might be a little easier to actually do it. If you don't have those agreements and then you try to do something different in the middle of the fight, it's not going to go well probably.
Yeah.
So the more you can create context, use code words, use certain signs, have some agreements on boundaries and all of that, it'll be easier to navigate and to come back and then to be vulnerable and to share. But yeah, if you have a partner who won't handle who won't respect your vulnerability, you're probably in the wrong relationship.
I was just thinking, my follow-up question was like, if you're actually can't even have these agreements and setups, and that person's not, that's probably not the relationship you want to be in.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I've noticed over the years. Now I've become a bit more aware. You know, I would jump in bed with anybody because of their looks or their attractions, and you know, a few months later, even weeks later, we realise there's nothing in common whatsoever. And I've been really having some lovely conversations with my friend Cody, who's on the island as well, and he's been on the podcast. Like, now I'm looking at relationships on levels of consciousness. I'm not sure if this is true. It's just like, this is a story in my head, but I'm just like, how conscious is this person? Can we have these agreements? Or, you know, how do they treat their body, the animals, the planet, the food? Like, whereas before, like, none of that existed at all. It was attraction based. It was animal instinct. And I feel like the world's definitely shifting, and this, what you've just shared here, is like another gold nugget you can bring in to that levels of consciousness. And then what a beautiful relationship. Or again, you're just going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of toxicity. You go, actually, we're not compatible. We're not aligned in a conscious level, whatever you want to label it. Yeah. So we don't need to have sex. We don't need to do all these things, you know, unless you want to and have loads of fun. But sometimes that fun it's not really fun, it's just something's taking over. Thanks so much for watching our videos and being part of the tribe. We're really here to raise consciousness, ignite your vibration, and help you master this monkey mind. And did you know that science has proven over and over again that one of the fastest ways to reprogram your mind is through positive affirmations and things like these Bodhi beads. They're a set of 108 mala beads that go round in a ring like this, and you practice positive affirmations to reprogram your brain. Science has also proven in a 30-day study that if you say the same affirmation and use a set of beads, then you can literally neurologically change the pathways in your brain. Now that means any of those limiting beliefs that you've got around money, around love, around health, you can change them if you repeat a certain affirmation that I am wealthy, I am loved, I am healthy. And that's why we've created a set of 8 powerful meditations where you do one meditation every day with me personally for 30 days. And you use your beads in your hand, and each time you use the affirmation, you roll your thumb and your finger around on these beads. These meditations are videoed, or you can download the MP3s, put them on your phone, and literally go to bed at night time rolling your Bodhi beads. These Bodhi beads are handmade with love in Thailand by a local family. We ship them free to anywhere in the world, and plus we donate 10% of all of our profits to an elephant sanctuary here in Thailand. So click the link below, make sure you sign up right now, because we're actually going to give you a 20% discount code. All you need to do is when you go to the checkout is type in I love Bodhi, and that will give you a 20% discount on your first purchase of Bodhi beads. Have an amazing day. Now you can get back to the video. See you soon.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with the short, you know, I had a teacher who said there's 2 kinds of relationship: short-term recreational, long-term committed.
Yeah.
And maybe in between, if you're like trying to figure out if, you know, if your short-term committed is going to be short-term recreational, can turn into a long-term committed. But usually you know the difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you meet someone, you can say, okay, this is just for fun, going to be great sex, maybe great partying together, great something together, but there's not the depth here that I'm going to need for a long-term relationship. Yeah. So really being aware of that. And then, you know, he would say, you know, if you're in a short-term recreational, as soon as there's one problem, get out.
Yeah.
If the sex is really good, maybe 2 problems.
Brilliant.
He's got a third, the third notch, and then you're already out.
You can leave.
Yeah, but that's the idea, right? To really be aware that there's nothing wrong with those short ones, but don't try to turn one of those into a long-term
wifey material marriage. And
because then you're screwed. It doesn't have the capacity, and it's going to be toxic.
I think maybe I'm just getting older, Bernard. I think now, because I'm aware of it, I can see almost instantly. It's like, and I don't even want to have the sex now. I'm like, that's just a lot of energy. It's a lot of distraction to me. So like slowly coming back, and waiting for that other one. And if it doesn't happen, you can still do your practice.
Yeah,
maybe that's just an age thing. I'm not sure.
I think
my younger self heard me now, be like, "What are you on? What are you talking about?"
I know, go for it.
Yeah,
it's a bit of wisdom, but it's also energy. How much energy do you want to spend? And we've done it enough also. So how many more times you need to do this?
Same pattern.
It's the same pattern over and over. The key for me is, it's not, do I love this person? Love is great, love is important, but love is mostly, like I said, wound attraction. It's kind of a chemical thing. It's this neurotransmitter that just flood us. And then at some point they recede. And then 6 months later, after the honeymoon phase, they recede. And then you look at the person, you go, oh, I don't know about love, but do I like them? And this is the question, right? Do I like you? Because I may think I love you, but I may not really like you. And if I want to have a relationship with you, I actually need to like you.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend a lot of time just hanging out with you, not being in love, but being in like. And so if we're compatible on that level, if we're a good match, if we kind of see the world the same way, talk the same way, understand things the same way, it's going to be super fun. But if we don't, it's not going to go well.
It's funny you saying that. I was literally on Koh the weekend, and I was with a friend who introduced me to one of her friends, and she just met this new guy, and I was like, do you know what? My advice? Just become friends for 2 or 3 months. Don't have sex. Yeah. She's like, what? I was like, I'm serious. And I said, and I don't know what it's like for girls. Obviously, I can only speak from my experience. I said, but when that stuff floods in, like you just said, all the chemicals and the hormones, I'm like, and I'm just being very honest with you, like, we're just getting infatuated and we get lost with that. I said, then 3 months later, you're either unraveling it, or it could be the one. You just don't know. Yeah. I'm like, but give yourself like a 3 or 2 month period where you just get to know each other. Yeah. And then see what happens. Because when that stuff kicks in and when that takes over and when you're having sex and the hormones, it's like you just think completely different, right? Oh, she's the one. She's like, I've never spoken to anybody like this before. Oh my God, I'm telling everyone, we met on 11/11. And it was like the moon was out and it was like, and I'm just looking, and hundreds of my mates have said it to me. I'm like, yeah. And then it's like 2 months like, yeah, but... and I'm just like, you can see it. So I think I've only learned that because I've so deluded myself doing those and lied to myself so much. I'm like, here we go again. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it to anyone. Maybe just take some time. Become, I love what you said. Just become friends, man, and then go from there.
If you think there's going to be, if you see someone that has that long-term potential,
yes,
then take your time. Yeah. There's no hurry.
Yeah, I love that, man.
If it's just, they're hot, you want to play, sure,
have
play.
some fun.
Yeah, have some fun. But otherwise, that's what I would say the same. Try to be friends for a while. Yeah. And see what happens, or try, see how the wound is playing out and play with all of that, but consciously.
Yeah. 2 more things before we wrap it up. So I know we've got like 40 minutes or whatever, but 2 more things that I would love to ask. So number one, we're talking a lot about relationships, which is obviously beautiful, and that's your expertise, and if anybody ever gets to Koh Phangan, come and see this man and come to one of your workshops. And as we're talking, I've realised I've never come to one of your workshops, so that's next on my list.
Yes.
I'd love to, actually. Now I've got to know you more, which is beautiful. So yeah, if you're ever on Koh Phangan, we'll put all of your links and your contact details underneath the video so people can find out more about the work that you do or the coaching. Yeah. But it's not just in relationships, right? Like I said, I was out with my mate the other day getting just a slightly little bit triggered, but we're not like in a lovely, beautiful, intimate relationship. We're just really good friends. Or I'm thinking of my younger self when he was really struggling with drugs, bless him, completely didn't have a clue what was going on. But like he was just trying to fulfill these wounds that he just didn't understand. So this work that you talk about and the way, which I love, the way you're framing things and doing the inner tracking and the outer tracking and the repairing. This is just life, right?
It is, and I work with brothers or parents, families, business partners, friends. It doesn't matter. Anybody with disagreement. When you get down to the bottom of it, the disagreements will come from some wounding issue. There's a reason why they can't. My wounding gets triggered, then I blame you, then you don't understand, and then you blame me back, and now we're lost. So we can always unravel all of that and then work with it and help people understand where it's coming from. And then once you get it, it changes everything. Once you understand that they're not trying to hurt you, that you're just seeing the world from your own worldview, your own world your own perspective, and it has nothing to do with what they're actually trying to do. I mean, at some point we start trying to hurt each other. I don't think we start out that way, but once we get triggered, we may become vengeful or resentful.
Say something spiteful.
Yeah, so then we do that sometimes, but it doesn't start that way. So if you can figure out what the actual wounding is and then work with that, it can change everything.
Nice, I love that.
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes, this is actually another question, do you think sometimes that we can just unravel too much? Like, because what I'm getting is beautiful, but I have over the years seen people that are in therapy for just too long, bless them, and they're sort of still going around in the same stuff, or is it that they've not got to the bottom of the wound? Because, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think a lot of the therapy can be good for understanding. You know, at the beginning of therapy, and when I did therapy years and years ago, I understood a lot. It really helped me understand why, about my psyche and my wounding and all of that. But it didn't do much healing. The talk therapy didn't do much healing. It just we just kept week after week kind of talking about the same stuff. And so I realized that wasn't going to be particularly useful for the next level. And so I think too many people stay on that level. They keep going to therapy week after week, and it's maintenance. It's company. There's somebody who hears you. It's useful. It's not like not useful, but it's not going to bring about a lot of healing. It almost keeps you there, because now you have this wounding, and then every week you go and you're validated for having that wounding, but it doesn't really change. So I think the way it changes is, one, in relationship, doing conscious relationship and doing that. Because what we do is, every time my partner abandons me, when she gets mad now and she walks away for an hour or two or whatever, and I'm like, oh, wounding, she will come back. My mom never came back. When my mom abandoned me at the orphanage or whatever, there was no repair. But now my partner can come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, babe, I'm here, I love you. And she's there, and so she does that reparenting that I never got, and I do it for her in her wounding. And so we do that for each other. So that's one way that we heal, and we become slowly more secure. And then we also do the workshops, the therapies, but it's got to be therapies that are more body-centered, trauma therapy, somatic therapies. Those are really more the useful ones. Even plant medicine, Kopangan is full of all the different
anything
things,
you want on this.
Anything you want to try. But it's beautiful, because there's a lot of different things, and you can try different modalities to find the one that might help you, bring you the most healing. Talk therapy is a good starting point, but I don't think it's going to help heal long term.
Yeah, no, I love that you said that. I've always said that there's always different paths for different people. Again, we're so complex.
Yeah.
What's worked for me might not work for Antonio. What's worked for you might not work for me. We really have to, again, more awareness, find out what's working for me, and then also be mindful that you're not stuck at that level, because you're always wanting to be growing, I guess.
Yes.
And evolving.
You're never there.
Yeah.
There's no there. I mean, one day maybe you're enlightened. One of the big tendencies on this island is the spiritual bypass. People become one with everything, they start meditating, and they're on their cushion, and they feel, and they have these incredible experiences, and they're one with whatever, and they think they're healed. But they're not doing the psychological work. Yeah. They're not actually healing the wound. They're just kind of bypassing it. And so we call it spiritual bypass. And now they go back in a relationship, and then they get all triggered and nothing works.
Or move back with their parents for a week.
Yes,
get
exactly.
triggered.
When you watch the monks in the monasteries, they're beautiful people, but they're full of triggers. They're full of infighting and stuff like that, even though they can sit on the cushion for 10 hours in a row. So it's different.
No, I kind of, there's a part of me that definitely agrees. I've definitely thought about running off and being a monk, because it seems easier sometimes. And, I find that I can sit down on the trees and just be by myself, but go dancing and feel like I'm really insecure at doing salsa because I trip on someone's toes. Like, I would never actually have that awareness if I was just sitting on the rock.
Exactly.
Or getting into a relationship, realizing I've got some mummy issues.
Yes.
I would never have that if I went celibate for the rest of my life. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. If that's the path you want to go and take. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, but I always say to people that, for me, meditation begins when your eyes are open.
Yes.
Closing your eyes and sitting down is the recharge, like putting your phone into the charge for nighttime. But then throughout the day, you're using it, you're scrolling, you're swiping. And that to me is like someone cuts you up. Do I put my middle finger up, or, do I just react on this lust that I've got, or do I start to be more mindful and aware? So for me, meditation is like the experience of life. Yeah, but I think you definitely got a charge.
It prepares you, but it doesn't replace.
Yeah. The other last question I had, my friend, I could ask you many questions. I think we might have to start doing like 2 or 3 hour podcasts, Antonio, because every guest I have, I'm like, I've got more. Was the downstairs in the kitchen, we didn't really speak about it much, but you said inner freedom. Inner freedom. So you said something, and I'll paraphrase it, and how it's like you you can have these things or be in this beautiful island, but if you don't have the inner freedom, can you explain what you meant there?
Yeah, so part of growing up, I just wasn't free. I was, living my parents' life. I wasn't living my life. They moved wherever they moved, or they put me here, they put me there. I had no choice. My whole childhood. When I was 17, I got to go study in America. I went there to learn English, and then ended up going to college in America. And I kind of found my freedom there, much more freedom. This was more my life now. I was living the life I wanted, not the life I was given or told to live. And then I made that my journey. I became self-employed. I bought a house, so I got all the physical freedom. I didn't have to answer to anyone anymore. More or less, you always have to, but more or less, much less than before. And after all of that, I realized I still wasn't free, and I wasn't free inside. I still had all this wounding, this conditioning, all these ways that I would walk into a room and I would either be scared or worried or insecure, and I wasn't free. I wasn't free to go talk to somebody that I found interesting and go talk to them because I was afraid of rejection, or I was afraid of imposing on them, or whatever my thing was. And so I saw all the ways that I still wasn't free. And so I realized that freedom is an inner journey.
Nice.
And then I found this workshop, this mentor of mine was doing a workshop and it was an inner freedom workshop, and he wrote a book about it. And that just made so much sense to me. And I realized this is my path, is to find that inner freedom. And so counseling and nonviolent communication, they're all tools to find more inner freedom.
Love it.
And so that's what I work on for myself. That's what I work on with my clients. I work with couples, but also work with individuals on this inner freedom stuff, on relationships, on communication, all the things that will help them have an easier life. That's really what it is about.
Yeah.
So how do I make my life easier?
Yeah.
And one thing I can say is, on this journey that I've been on, my life is so much easier now than it ever was. It still has stuff, but it's so much easier. And now when I'm not free, I see it. I go, oh, I'm not free. Like if there's something I want to do, and I watch myself hold back, and I go, oh, that's another one that you haven't quite figured out yet. All right.
But now you're kind of like, oh, okay, let's invite it in for a cup of tea. Let's have a little chat.
Yes. And then I can work with it. I can talk to somebody about it. It's another thing I can continue to work with. But so that's the journey for me, is to keep finding those spots and then keep working them.
Which is kind of, if you look at social media and society, it's like not all social media, it's amazing, especially this channel. But when you look at a lot of things, it's like chase the girl, get the car, get the money, be successful, write the book, create a podcast, trying to be the person. Where you're saying, or what I'm getting is actually go the other way, go within, create that freedom from all of this stuff that you didn't choose, you didn't pick, and we're not blaming anyone, just take responsibility. Create that inner freedom, and then maybe if you get all the other stuff on the outside, amazing, great. But if you don't, if you're free in here, because I know a lot of people with all the stuff out there, but like you said, they're just not free, bless them.
Exactly.
I know people with nothing that just seem to be a lot freer.
Yes.
So I don't think the external is the answer, right? It's a cliche, but it's an inside job.
Yeah. The Buddhists call it the hungry ghost.
The hungry ghost.
The hungry ghost. You keep, you feed this ghost. You have more money, more sex, more power, whatever. It's never enough.
Yeah.
Look at politicians. They've got all the power in the world. You can be president of the United States. It's still not enough.
Yeah.
You need more. You gotta continue to feed that hungry ghost.
And I think, again, back to this podcast, it's a conscious conversation, and I think it's about, to use the words just to kind of give it a frame, is like this ego is constantly trying to build a character up, constantly protecting itself, constantly chasing and chasing. Where when you just sink into your essence, that Bodhi nature, and you just come back to that, you just realize how beautiful and amazing you are. Why would you not want to share that with somebody else, whether it's your friend, whether it's an intimate relationship, or whether it's to a group of people watching a video on YouTube? Like, we can all come back to this space and stop playing these kind of games that we're either aware of or not aware of. And I think the work that you do is beautiful, Bernard. So thank you so much for sharing, because I've definitely learned a lot. I can see Antonio's nodding every now and then behind the cameras because, we're all human. We're all in this journey together. And if we can make these things normal, instead of just trying to not be triggered and just trying to be vulnerable, open up, get to the bottom of your shit, and you can be free. And what a great life you can live after.
And vulnerability is a strength, right? So when we talk about masculinity, a strong masculine is a vulnerable masculine.
Yeah.
You're strong enough to be able to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I love that.
It's not a weakness.
Yeah. Whereas like some people it's like be strong and don't talk about that. I'm like, no, actually it's definitely the other way around. Like you're stronger if you're more vulnerable, right?
Yes.
Well, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Mate, how can people find out about you? Like if they just wanted to like, wow, this was amazing. Do you have a website, Instagram?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. I'm the Wizard of Love.
Wizard of Love. You kept that till the end. I love that.
Find the Wizard of Love on Facebook, and you'll find me. And you can see my classes that I do on Kopangan. I do classes where I teach nonviolent communication. We have practice group. We come together and we practice. It's a bit of a therapy group in a way because we get to practice how to use nonviolent communication, but with real issues from our lives. And so then as we solve those, it becomes very, very therapeutic.
Nice. It's a 2-hour, did you say earlier it was like a 2-hour workshop?
There's a 2-hour class, and then a 2-hour practice group. Those happen every week.
Nice.
So you have to do the introduction class first to learn the model and all of that, and then you get to come and practice with us. And the practice happens every week.
And if they're not on Kopangan, can you do that?
If they're not on Kopangan, I do one-on-one sessions. I do counseling sessions. I will teach the model. I teach it to groups, to classes, to organizations, to families.
Yeah.
So they can, I can do that online. I do counseling sessions online, and I'm working on a book, which we'll see if I ever get it done. And there's also another bigger workshop that I've done here, a 2-day workshop that I'm now converting to a 3-day. And so I just need to a little motivation to get that finished and start offering that.
Yeah, when you say if you get it done, why? What's the block from stopping you from getting the book done?
Good question. Collaboration. I think for me personally, I do really well when I'm collaborating. When I'm working alone, I kind of lose my motivation.
Yeah.
I've done some research and understanding about my personality type. I don't know if you know the human design.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that, I really need collaboration. I'm externally referenced. And so when I do things alone, it's not interesting.
Yeah.
And so this workshop I created, it took 5 years because it took somebody to come in and join me on it. And then together we created it, and then it was great. But alone, much harder for me to do things.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe I need a motivational
Get
coach
that book out.
Yeah.
I only say that because I've published a book before, and then I'm going through another book at the moment, and I've got I think I've probably on 80% of it to get it done. And now the fear comes up, the imposter syndrome comes up, all of the bullshit comes back up. But it's I learned a long time ago from Stephen King, the best way to publish a book is to sit down and write a book. And it's like a lot of people wait for creativity, or we're waiting, and it's like, no, you just got 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock every morning, that's your writing time. Even if you write one word, you just got, and 3 months later, you've got a book done, or a first draft at least. So
I've got about 3/4 done,
nice.
but it's been sitting for a year now, so I need to.
Now you've got to get the last bit. It's always that last hurdle.
It's what was hard is also the fact that at the beginning it just flows out.
Yeah.
At the end it's got to fit.
Yeah, and then you got to edit it and
Well, yeah, that also. I had somebody doing the editing as I went along, but it's just now I'm looking at things that I've already talked about. So how do I make them fit? And now it's I have to think about it. Before it just flowed.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe I'll come and sit with you and we can
write
together.
Yeah, anytime. I would love to. We could do a little chat. But I was about to say, I was going to say something and I completely forgot. I think the hardest bit about getting a book done is that last bit. Yeah.
Getting it out.
Cool, man. I appreciate it. So yeah, guys, click the links underneath if you enjoyed this conversation. If you want to hear any more from Bernard, let us know. We can get him back on the podcast. I'm sure you've got lots of questions. Or if you've got any other topics that you want to learn about, let us know. We'll look for someone on the island. I'm sure we can find people on this island that can answer many of your questions. And make sure you subscribe and follow Bernard as well, because I've been working on myself for nearly 21 years. And I still feel like I'm at the complete beginning. Maybe I'm not doing all the things I used to do 20 years ago, but things come up. And I love what you said, just to emphasize that as we end. It's like, you're always going to be working on yourself. It's not as extreme as it used to be. No. But there's always stuff there.
Yes,
I don't know about you. I think that's the beauty of it.
Makes it fun.
It's amazing, right? Yeah. So thank you for the reminders, man.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you very much for having me.
Hello viewers, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm hoping that you enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed making it. We love this adventure we're on, we love growing this community, and we would love you to actually help us. So I've got a favor to ask you. Make sure that you subscribe below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and turn that notification button on, because that actually helps us with the algorithm. In other words, it's gonna help us reach more people and spread this ripple effect. And I really appreciate your time and energy for watching any video. So if you've got any comments or questions or queries, make sure you pop them in the box below. By subscribing, you are going to be one of the first people to know when we release new content. If you really want to take your journey and your growth to the next level, make sure you watch this next video and have an amazing day. Once again, thank you so much for your time and your energy. See you in the next video.